This is Erica from stuffimakemyhusband.com, and today we're going to be making chopped liver. And if you're Jewish or you're from New York, you probably are familiar with chopped liver and you know how delicious it is. If not, then you're in for a treat. So first I have out all of our ingredients. Most importantly, a pound of chicken livers. Then I have a whole bunch of onions. I have 2 onions that I sliced in the food processor. It looks like a lot, but we're actually going to cook it down quite a bit. Some parsley. Just going to season it simply with salt and pepper. 4 eggs that I boiled and peeled. And the secret ingredient, I have the fat and some of the skin from a chicken I butchered. The first step is to render out some of the fat from the chicken. And this process is known as making Schmaltz and Gribenes. The liquid chicken fat that remains is the Schmaltz, and then the little crispy bits of skin are the Gribenes. That's basically what kosher people eat instead of bacon. So the first thing that we do is just put our cut up chicken fat in a cold skillet and then turn it to medium low and let it sit for a long time, just letting it render out all the fat. And this is what your chicken skin and fat will look like after cooking on low or medium low for about 30 minutes. The liquid fat that's pooled at the bottom is the Schmaltz. These pieces are the Gribenes. And if you don't want to render out your chicken fat, you can just use ghee or some other cooking oil. So we're going to strain out the Schmaltz from the Gribenes and use the Schmaltz for cooking our livers and our onions as well. So next thing we want to do is cook the livers. And so just take a little bit of our Schmaltz and pour it right in the same skillet. There's still some fat left in there. And then we're going to take our chicken livers, and they're kind of in a pool of their own liquid. So it's good to use our hands for this. This stove is on medium. And chicken livers are a really good source of vitamin A and trace minerals, so that means that this is healthy. Meanwhile, while the livers cook, we're going to caramelize our onions, and we're also going to caramelize those in chicken fat. So I like to start them on medium heat and then turn them to medium low as they start to get more caramelized. Pour in a little bit of our fat, and then add our onions. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make when caramelizing onions is trying to cook them at too high of a heat or cooking them too quickly. We want to cook them for a long time at a low heat. So we'll start with medium, turn it to medium low once they turn brown, and the total process will probably take about 20 to 25 minutes. So while we cook our onions, we want to be cooking the livers until they're just barely pink on the inside. It's not a time for rare liver. We definitely want it to be cooked through. And this is pretty much what the livers should look like when they're done. You can see that they're just barely pink on the inside. We still have some dark spots, but that's just from the color of the livers. They have those dark red spots, but this is what it should look like when it's cooked. So we're going to pull it off heat. You can certainly chop them by hand, but I like to use my food processor. So first, we just transfer the livers right in there. Yummy. At home, I normally use my Nana's old chopper, but when I'm away, I use my food processor. So we're going to season it with a lot of salt and pepper. So those are the only seasonings that we're using, so we want to make sure to use plenty of that. Lots of pepper. And then this is the point where we're also going to add the hard-boiled eggs that I showed you before. So the food processor bowl just has our chicken livers, our salt and pepper, and our boiled eggs. And then we're going to pulse it. We don't want it to be completely smooth like a mousse. We still want it to be pretty roughly chopped, but fine enough that we could use it as a dip. And I think it's better to pulse it rather than keeping it on continuously. Scrape down the sides. And I'm going to add our remaining Schmaltz just to make it nice and creamy and decadent. Give it one last pulse. And now we're almost ready. So in the meantime, my onions have caramelized. You can see what they look like here. And I like to just mix the finished chopped liver with the onions rather than pulsing them in because I like to have those big strands of caramelly onions in there. Slippery. So I'm spooning this out with my silicone spatula. Kind of likes to stick. So here we go. That's most of it. Adding our onions. And you might want to use a fork for this step. And you just want to get those onions really mashed in there well. If I had more schmaltz, I'd probably be adding that too, but I just had one chicken and it was an organic chicken, so it didn't have that much fat on it. I just pulled the fat out of the cavity and off the back, and I decided to take the skin off the breast too. And right now my dogs are very interested in what it is that I'm doing. And now we're just plating up the finished dish. So I'm going to mound our chopped liver that's all mixed up with the schmaltz and caramelized onions and eggs. Just mound them up nicely on a plate. And you can use your hands. I'd probably use my hands if I wasn't being videotaped, but I'm trying to be a lady and use a silicone spatula for my chicken organs. So now that I have this mounded up in some sort of attractive way, I just like to make a little crosshatch. And then we're going to top it with the Gribenes from before, which is basically Jewish bacon. Just cover it with these wonderful little nibbles. And in the meantime, I've also chopped some parsley leaves. We're going to sprinkle those on as well. If I make it without the Schmaltz and Gribenes and I just use ghee or cooking oil instead, then I usually don't bother with the parsley. And there you have it. Here is our real deal Jewish chopped liver with Schmaltz and Gribenes. I hope you liked my video.